Welcome back. So let's do the regions, and we are going to be working on the multiple choice part of the January 2010 Global History and Geography regions. So let's get to work. Alright, so let's get started. You know what I like about the multiple choice part of the regions exam? Is, besides the fact that it's really easy, is that the answers are right there in front of you. That's right. The answers are right there in front of you. You just gotta find them. So you have a question, you have 4 choices, one of them is the right answer. It's that easy. Alright, so let's take a look at it. Question number 1. Which example best represents a primary source? Is it 1. A 20th century novel about events leading up to the French Revolution? Is it 2. Film footage taken during the liberation of Nazi concentration camps? Is it 3. An interview with an expert on the fall of the Roman Empire? Or is it 4. A lecture on the impact of the African slave trade on South America? So to answer this question properly, you gotta know what's the primary source. So, what's the primary source? It's any document which existed at that time. So, answer number 1 is wrong. We can eliminate it because novel is a secondary source. Answer number 3 is wrong because that expert did not live in ancient Rome. Answer number 4 is wrong because that lecturer did not live at that time. Makes no sense. Answer number 2 is right because that film footage was taken at that time. It's that easy. Let's move on. 2. Question number 2. So, a geographic similarity between Italy and India is that both of these countries are located. Is it 1. On peninsulas? Is it 2. On archipelagos? Is it 3. Between 2 oceans? Or is it 4. South of the equator? So, what's a peninsula? It's an area of land surrounded on 3 sides by water. Answer number 2 is wrong because archipelago is basically a chain of islands. And if you know what an island is, it's basically it's land. It's a piece of land surrounded by water on all of its sides. And archipelago is a chain of islands. So, answer number 3 is wrong because when you think of India, think about Indian Ocean. When you think of Italy, think about Mediterranean Sea. It's that easy. So, answer number 4 is wrong because it makes no sense, absolutely no sense, because if you've seen the map, equator is in the middle of the earth. It's like a line that runs through the middle of the earth, and both of these countries are above it. And answer number 1 is right because both Italy and India are located on peninsulas. They're surrounded by water on all 3 sides. Alright, question number 3. Which statement best describes an aspect of a command economy? Now, if you've seen my Cold War video, you should know it. You should automatically know the answer for this question. So, let's take a look at it. Number 1. Is it profit motivates individuals to set up private business? Is it 2. Tradition, religion, and customs heavily influence economic decisions? Is it 3. Supply and demand regulate the economy? Or is it 4. Government directs and controls the means of production? So, what's a command economy? It's an economic system where government has a total control of all aspects of the economy. It's a planned economy. There's no private property. So, mostly, when you think of a command economy, think about communist governments. Examples: USSR, which is the Soviet Union, North Korea, Cuba, etc. So answers number 1 and 3 describe capitalism, which is free trade, free market, no government, little or no government regulation. Answer number 2 is vague and could describe a number of traditional and religious societies, and it makes no sense. And answer number 4 is right. It's the right answer because it clearly defines the command economy. It tells you what the command economy is. It's that easy, kids. So let's move on. Alright, so let's move on. Question number 4. Indus and Huanghe, which is the Yellow River. So those rivers are both closely associated with, is it 1. Border disputes? Is it 2. Sacred biblical sites? Is it 3. Cradles of early civilizations? Or is it 4. Oil discoveries? So we can eliminate answers 1, 2, and 4 right away. because they don't make any sense. You know, answer number 1 talks about border disputes when there are no border disputes associated with these rivers. You know, answer number 2 talks about sacred biblical sites. It just doesn't make any sense. So, answer number 4 is wrong because most oil is found in deserts. So when you think of oil, think about Middle East or in Arctic areas. Oh, Middle East has one of the largest deposits of oil. So that's why answer number 3 is the right answer. So let's review the topic of river valley civilizations. So approximately 4,000 BCE, first civilizations arose around river valleys. Why? Water, ways to growing water crops, and you got fish. You could travel on boats, small boats. You know, it made sense to settle there. So that's right, and that's why number 3 is the right answer. Alright, so let's move on to number 5. A similarity between Shinto in Japan and animism in African societies is that both. Now, when you think about those religions, you don't have to know a lot about them, but let's review those answers. Answer number 1, use the Torah to establish law codes. Now, when you see Torah, you have to think about Judaism. It's the sacred book of Judaism. Just like the Bible is the sacred book of Christianity and Quran is the sacred book of Islam. So, Judaism is the monotheistic religion because they believe in one God. There are 2 other monotheistic religions. There are Christianity and Islam. That's right. And that's why number 1 doesn't make any sense, guys. It's wrong. So, number 2, stress the importance of the eightfold path. Now that is the wrong answer, because when you think about the eightfold path, you have to think about the cycle of life. You know, number 1, suffering causes desire, love, all life. Don't lie, don't kill or steal, don't promote evil, promote good, focus on your emotions, and meditate. It's Buddhism, basically. So, another thing that you gotta know about Buddhism is 4 noble truths. Life is full of suffering. All suffering is caused by desire. If you end desire, you end suffering, and you get nirvana. Not the music band. All right, so. Well, that's right. So, answer number 3 is the right answer. It's as easy as that. Both of these, Shinto, when you think of Shinto, think Japan. When you think of animism, think Africa. They believe that spirits exist everywhere in nature. Easy question, easy answer. Let's move on. Question number 6. The Code of Hammurabi and Chinese legalism both rely on the idea that, is it 1, governments must provide their people with rights? Is it 2, harsh laws are needed to control society? Is it 3, all subjects are equal under the law? Is it 4, religion and government must be brought closer together? So, answers number 1 and 3 are wrong because they describe a modern Western democracy. So, when you think about 1 and 3, that's modern Western democracy, which is the government ruled by the people, and where people have certain rights and representations. When you guys are going to take United States history, you guys are going to learn about those democratic principles. But let's see. Answer number 4 is wrong because it describes a theocracy. That's right. So A religion and government must be brought together, close together. Doesn't make any sense, guys. No sense whatsoever. Because that's theocracy. And when you think about theocracy, it's the government ruled by religion. Theocracy, government ruled by religion. Religion. Theocracy equals religion. Example, Iran. Modern example is Iran. Country. Okay, so answer number 3 is the only one that makes sense, because if you remember, the Code of Hammurabi was an early set of written laws. And these laws were pretty harsh. You know, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Really harsh laws. It's similar to Chinese philosophy of legalism, which stressed that harsh punishments are needed to keep everything in order. So, easy question, easy answer. Question number 7. So, one similarity between the Gupta Empire and Arab dynasties of the Islamic Golden Age is that they, 1. Made advances in mathematics and literature. Is it 2. Gained wealth by obtaining gold from the Americas? Is it 3. Stressed the importance of dharma and karma? Or is it 4. Controlled territories around the Mediterranean sea coast? So answer number 2 is wrong, because that would be Spain during the Age of Exploration. If you remember, Spain got a lot of gold from the New World. So, answer number 3 is wrong, because that would be a religion of Hinduism. And if you remember, Dharma believed in non-violence, fasting, and self-denial, and karma means that people who did good things will have, good karma, and will be reincarnated into higher life forms, because reincarnation played a big role in Hinduism. So, answer number 4 is just plain wrong. So, you just gotta know the map, and that was not where they were located. Mediterranean sea coast. I mean, even if you look at the question, Arab dynasties, Arabian Peninsula, right away it tells you right here. Good. So, answer number 2 is the only one that makes sense. Gupta Empire, 320 to 550 of the Common Era. So, when you see Gupta Empire in the regions, think India. India, Gupta Empire, India, Gupta Empire, India. Think advances in science, medicine, literature, and math. So, when you are using numbers, you gotta thank the Gupta Empire for that. And the Islamic Golden Age, 8th to 13th centuries. Think Arabian Peninsula, think advances in science, medicine, literature, and math. If you guys like Aladdin, you gotta think of the Islamic Golden Age when you think about that piece of literature. So easy as that. So it's easy just like that. Let's move on. Alright, so let's move on. Question number 8. Which geographic factor has often made Korea a key region for those seeking to control East Asia? Is it 1. Long coastline? Is it 2. Location? Is it 3. Mountains? Or is it 4. Climate? Now this is a very, very easy question, because Korea is located in Asia. And it makes sense that it will be a key region for those seeking to control it. Even today, Korea is divided between communist North Korea, which is under the Chinese sphere of influence, and democratic South Korea, which is under the Western sphere of influence. When you think of the Western sphere of influence, you have to think about the United States, of course. So, this is why answer number 2 is the only one that makes sense. So, let's move on to question number 9. Which culture is credited with development of gunpowder, the abacus, and the compass? Now, this is another easy question. All those inventions were originally invented in China. But the 4 choices that they're giving you is number 1 Chinese, number 2 Persian, number 3 Indian, and number 4 Japanese. China. Right away, you have to know that it's China. And for example, gunpowder was invented in China during the 9th century. So, China. When you see gunpowder on the Regents, and if you're asked about where it was invented, right away, think China. Gunpowder, China. Which is why number 1 is the right answer. Easy? Easy. Now, question number 10 is the very, very tricky one, where I can see why a lot of students would make a mistake if they rush through it, which is why you don't want to rush through your Regents. At the same time, you of course you shouldn't be taking it slow, but you want to keep your timing just right. So, let's see. Cyrillic alphabet adopted for use in Russia. Russians accept the teachings of the Orthodox Christian Church and onion-shaped domes dotted skyline of Kievan, Russia. Alright, so when you see that type of question, first thing you have to do is you have to read what's on top before you even read the question. And now let's read the question. Which term is most closely associated with these statements? Is it 1, ethnocentrism? Is it 2, interdependence? Is it 3, cultural diffusion? Or is it 4, colonialism? Now this is a very tricky question, whether it's easy to make a mistake if you rush through it. So let's go over it, so to speak. So answer number 4 can be eliminated right away. Why? Because colonialism is when a stronger country seeks to dominate a weaker one. So it seeks to dominate a weaker country or region for its own economic benefit. So 4 is wrong. Number 1 is wrong. Answer number 1 is wrong because ethnocentrism is like a belief that your own culture is superior to all other cultures. So it's like, it's a fancy way of stating of terming the word racism. It's sort of like racism. And if you look at answers 2 and 3, at first both can be considered right because both of them deal with relationships between countries. However, answer number 2 is wrong because it deals with an economic aspect of trade between countries, interdependence. Sort of like EU, European Union. But answer number 3 is the right one. So, why? Because cultural diffusion is an exchange of culture and ideas between different groups of people. So this is why it would be easy to make a mistake on this question, but if you know your history, it's easy. Let's move on. Right. Alright, you got a math question. So, every region is going to have a math question. Every global region is going to have a math question. So, to get a good grade on the regions, you have to know how to read maps. So, let's take a look at question 11. By the way, I have to maximize the map for you guys to see the questions and the answers. That's why I'm only gonna speak right here for questions 11 and 12 because there's just no space. So, question number 11. Which statement about the trip taken by Emperor Mansa Musa is accurate? Is it 1, trip extended beyond North African trade routes? Is it 2, Mansa Musa used the Mediterranean Sea to reach Mecca? Is it 3, the route primarily followed major rivers? Or is it 4, Mansa Musa traveled to Fez on his way to Mecca? So the answer is right here on a map. You have a map, you have a legend, of course, but so you see a line, that's the trade route, and Mansa Musa route to Mecca. Right away you know he traveled to Mecca if you look under where it says legend. So Number 2 is which says that Maximus used the Mediterranean Sea to reach Mecca is absolutely wrong, because if you take a look at the legend, none of it ever interferes with the Mediterranean Sea, which is on top of the map. So it's wrong. So number 3. No, it does not follow major rivers. Well, primarily followed major rivers. That's the key word, primarily. If you see it did, he did follow the Niger River, but primarily is the key word here. This is why some people might pick that answer, because they'll take a look at the map, they'll see Niger River right away. They're gonna think that's the right answer, and that's how they're gonna trick you guys. You gotta think. So number 3 is wrong. Number 4, Mansa Musa traveled to Fez. If you see Fez on the map, it doesn't correspond to his route, so it's wrong. So number 1 is the only one that makes sense. The only answer that makes sense. So trip extended beyond North African trade route, so it went beyond North Africa to reach Mecca, and we have to move on to number 2. So number 1 is the right answer for number 11. Number 2. Which conclusion about trade is best supported by the information on the map? Is it 1, Timbuktu was a center of trade in West Africa? Is it 2, the Sahara Desert prevented trade? Is it 3, Cairo and Mecca were trading partners? Is it 4, West African gold and silver were traded along the Zaire River? Alright, so let's take a look at answer number 2. The Sahara Desert prevented trade. Makes no sense because trade routes went through the Sahara Desert. Is it 3, Cairo and Mecca were trading partners? Well, we don't know it from the map. It doesn't tell us that. Is it 4, West African gold and salt were traded along the Zaire River? If you want to find that river, it's on the bottom of the map, and that's the wrong answer because it does not correspond along any trade routes. So that's why number 1 is the only answer that's right in this. Well, in this case. So Timbuktu was a center of trade in West Africa. West. If you see, there's a legend: W and ES. W means west. And that's the right answer. Easy. Let's move on. Base your answer to question 13 on the chart below in your knowledge of social studies. Oh really? Because seriously guys, you don't need to know anything about social studies to answer this question. Just gotta look at the chart and you gotta know how to read it. So let's take a look at the chart. It says foreign coins of ancient and medieval times found in East African city-states. Foreign coins is listed in Hellenistic, which is ancient Greek, Persian, Egyptian, Roman, Byzantine, Umayyad, Abbasid, Mongol, other foreign Muslim countries which are not identified, Chinese dynasties. We got Tang, Song, Ming, Qing. I have a list of East African city-states. Right away you know that the answer number 2 is the right answer. Why? Because it's you have a list of dynasties, and you can see a number of coins which were found in these city-states. If you take a look at the bottom of the chart, number 1, it's talking about Bantu migration. It makes no sense. It's not talking about because the chart has nothing to do with migration. Right away, eliminate it. Number 3, East African city-states trade directly with Northern Europe. You can't tell from the chart. And number 4, Romans control trade with East African. That answer just makes no sense whatsoever. That question is really, really easy. Even though it says that you have to use your knowledge of social studies, you really don't. Because it's right there. If you can read the chart, you can answer the question easily. Question number 14. What is the primary characteristic of a feudal society? Is it 1, a representative government? Is it 2, economic equality for all? Is it 3, protection of individual rights? Or is it 4, an exchange of land for services? So, answers number 1 and 3 are wrong because they deal with democracy. Answer number 2 deals with communism. And answer number 4 is the only one that makes sense. So, feudalism deals with the exchange of land. So, peasants or serfs had to work the land and for the right to live there. If they were serfs, they were technically slaves, but they could not be traded as individuals. They could only be traded with land. All right, but feudalism. When you think about feudalism in medieval Europe, this system usually had a king on top, or a pope, if it's a Catholic country, but usually it's king. Then nobles, knights, traders, and craftsmen, peasants, and serfs on the very bottom. It varied a little bit by region, but for the most part, that's how it went. So, this is a very easy question, easy answer. Alright, question number 15. Yeah, this is one of the easiest questions that you will find on the Regents because look, answer number 3 is the only one that makes any sense because when you think about the Italian Renaissance, you have to think about the time period in European history when there was a high emphasis on reviving ancient Greek and Roman cultures, as well as the development of contemporary culture, which promoted learning. This is why number 1, affairs of the church, number 2, self-sufficiency, or number 4, political theories. Those answers don't make any sense. It's the importance of individual. You want to be the best person that you can be. You want to learn. Importance of individualism. So, that's what humanism dealt with. Importance of individualism. Base your answer to question 16 on the drawing below and your knowledge of social studies. So, let's take a look at the drawing. I'm looking at it. I'm seeing a whole bunch of people working together. Looks like they're planting something. Looks like food. So, let's see. Question 16. What does this drawing indicate about the Inca civilization? Is it 1, religious influence on architecture? Is it 2, cooperation and planting in agriculture? Is it 3, superior military technology used for defense? Or is it 4, the role of government during a natural disaster? Very, very easy question. You just gotta look at the picture to know that number 2 is the right answer. They're cooperating, they're working together to plan to plant food. They're planting food, they're working in agriculture. Question number 1, religious influence in agriculture. I mean, it does talk about, question number 1 does talk about agriculture, but I don't see anything about religion here. I see people working together, so that's why number 1 is wrong. Number 3, superior military technology used for defense. This picture does not show anything about military. It does not tell us anything about military. It doesn't show anything with that regards. Question number 4. Role of government during natural disaster? No. So, easy question, easy answer. Let's move on. Question number 17. Which individual's work had the greatest impact on the spread of Martin Luther's ideas? If you remember who Martin Luther was, he was the leader of the Protestant Reformation year. So, answer number 1. So, is it Galileo? Well, what Galileo did is he invented the heliocentric theory in 1609, which is why it's the wrong answer. And if you remember what that theory states is that the sun is the center of the universe. And we can eliminate that one. Question number 2. Machiavelli. If you see Machiavelli on the Regents, think The Prince. 1532. So he wrote a book He was a philosopher who wrote a book which states that it's better to be feared than to be loved. So rulers had to be ruthless. They have to be brutal in order to keep control. Because if your people love you, they can hate you tomorrow. But if they fear you, they're not going to rebel. That was the theory. So we can eliminate number 2. Number 3. Answer number 3. William Shakespeare. He was an English writer, 16th to 17th century, right away. Let's cross that one out. That's the wrong answer, so answer number 4 is the only one that makes sense, because Gutenberg, if you know, 1440 printing press, and what printing press did, it made it easier to spread ideas, like the Bible, pamphlets, anything. Because before the printing press, the only way to write something down was through manuscripts. You had to write something by hand, and it took a long time. So number 4 is the right answer. It's the only one that makes sense. Question number 18. So let's see. It looks like we have a quote here. Quote. You're always gonna have those types of questions on Regents, so let's read the quote. It brought the potato, the pineapple, the turkey, dahlias, sunflower, magnolias, maize, chilies, and chocolate across the Atlantic. On the other hand, tens of millions died in pandemics of the 16th century, victims of smallpox, measles, and other diseases brought by Europeans. And don't forget that the African slave trade that began by Europeans to replace the workforce, they had decimated. So, which historical development is being described in this quotation? Is it 1, the establishment of the line of demarcation? Absolutely wrong. Number 2 is wrong. Number 4 is wrong. It's England, Glorious Revolutions. 3, Columbian Exchange. It defines it. So, let's move on. Question number 19. The social class system in Latin America during the 16th and 17th centuries reflects the... Well, first of all, I don't like that question. Because the idea of class system, if you've seen my Cold War video, it's the idea of communism. And that came from communism, that there's an upper class, there's a lower class, rich and poor, and as you know, Marxism did not develop until the 19th century. So this idea that they're promoting in public schools today, that somehow there was a social class in 16th and 17th centuries, I personally think it's a little bit wrong, but it's mostly social status. That's how I would personally have written this question, but let's see the answers. Let's see the choices that were given. Answer number 1, dominance of Spanish-born nobility. Number 2, emerging equality between classes. Number 3, influence of mestizo economic power. Or question number 4, answer number 4, increasing social mobility of Native American Indians. Obviously the answer is 1, because 16th and 17th century Latin America was a very race-based. It was a society based on race. So, Spanish-born nobility, Spanish Europeans were on top. Mestizos were usually in the middle, and Native Americans were on the very bottom. So number 1 is the right answer. The rest don't make any sense. 2, 3, and 4 don't make any sense. Alright, so question number 20. So, one way in which Suleiman the Magnificent and Akbar the Great are similar is that they both brought about periods of, is it 1, political stability and religious tolerance? Is it 2, religious conquest and persecution? Now what I see, answer number 2. I'm thinking crusades right away. So, no. Answer number 3, is it isolationism and cultural stagnation? No. Is it 4, modernization, political disunity? Absolutely not, so it's not number 1. Political stability, when you think about those 2 leaders, you don't have to know a lot about them. You have to think about religious tolerance and political stability. And let's take a look at question number 21. Now, I might read a little bit wrong, but it says Adirex Aregilex. The king is from God, and law is from the king, James the First. So, this quotation reflects the concept of, well, if you see God, first of all, if you ever see God on the Regents, you know it's talking about divine right. So, in medieval history, kings justified their right to rule by stating that I'm here because God put me here, basically. So it's divine right of rule. So even before seeing the answers, I know it's divine right to rule. But let's see the answers. Is it constitutional monarchy? No. It's separation of powers. It really doesn't belong on. Answer number 2 does not really belong on global regions. You're going to see it on the U.S. regions when dealing with separation of powers between executive, legislative, and judicial branches. And you will see it on U.S. history regions. Not that much on global. You might see it shouldn't be here, but it's the wrong answer. Answer number 3, equal representation. No, that's democracy. It's number 4. So let's move on. Question number 22. So which statement about the scientific revolution, now when you think about scientific revolution, you got to think about, a little bit of 16th, but mostly 17th and 18th century advances in science here. But which statement about the scientific revolution in Europe is accurate? Is it 1, the existence of natural laws was rejected? Is it 2, scientists questioned traditional beliefs about the universe? Is it 3, new ideas supported the geocentric theory of Ptolemy? Or is it 4, the Bible was used to justify new scientific findings? We can eliminate question number 1 because they wanted to learn more about natural laws. But so if you rush through this question on Regents, or question like that, and see natural laws, some people might mark that answer is correct automatically. They rush through it without reading everything. You should never do that. You should never, ever do that. So, it's wrong. Number 2 is the right answer because scientists did question traditional beliefs about the universe, and that's scientific revolution. But on the actual Regents, you want to read all the choices that you're given. Number 3, new ideas supported the geocentric theory of Ptolemy. Absolutely not, because the geocentric theory of Ptolemy stated that Earth is the center of the universe. But during the scientific revolution, people looked at Galileo's theory that it is the sun that's the center of the universe. So, and answer number 4, Bible is used to justify new scientific findings. No, it's wrong. So, number 2 is the right answer. So, let's take a look at question number 23. Under the old regime in France, the burden of taxation fell mostly on, to properly understand the question, you gotta know what was one of the causes of the French Revolution. And basically, there were 3 estates in France. The first estate was the nobility, the second estate was the clergy, and 97% pretty much everybody else was a commoner. And what happened was the commoners had to pay all the taxes, even though they made up 97% of the population. They had to pay all the taxes. So, nobles didn't have to pay anything. Clergy didn't have to pay anything. Monarchy didn't have to pay anything. Yeah, I mean the first estate, nobles, monarchy, and nobility, basically same thing. Well, then there you have it. Number 4 is the right answer. So, question number 24. One way which Robespierre and Napoleon are similar is that they both, is it 1, played an important role in the Congress of Vienna? No. 2, increased their power during the French Revolution? Yes, they did. 3, were executed for treason by the French monarchs? No. And led the armies against Haitians? No. So, easy, just like that. Let's move on. Alright kids, so let's take a look at question number 25. So, many critics believe that the policy of the British government during the Irish famine is it 1. Contributed to food shortages, 2. Ignored military concerns, 3. Discouraged immigration, or is it 4. Led directly to civil war? Now, the answer is 1, and here's why. The Irish famine should really be called the Irish potato famine of 1845. So what happened was, Ireland was really dependent on potatoes, and when a disease wiped them out, Irish people starved, basically. Now, potatoes wasn't the only thing that Irish people grew. I mean, they grew wheat, among other crops, but that crop had to be imported into to Britain. So, many Irish people died. As many as 1 million people died. So, number 1 is the right answer. Number 2 doesn't make any sense. Question number 3, discouraged immigration. In fact, the quite opposite happened. Because of that famine, a lot of Irish people actually migrated to the United States and settled around northeastern areas, such as New York and Boston. And number 4, led directly to civil war. No, that's not the right answer. So it's number 1. So number 26, which of these developments in Africa was the cause of other three? So this is the cause and effect question. So let's take a look at some of the choices that were given. So number 1, rival tribal groups fought wars. Number 2, the Berlin Conference of 1884 influenced colonial boundaries. Is it number 3, traditional territory and culture groups were permanently fragmented? Or is it 4, African economies became dependent on the sale of cash crops and raw materials? The answer is 2. So what happened was in 1884, in Berlin, which is the capital of Germany, where there were a whole bunch of European countries, and what they did is they took a map of Africa and they divided it among themselves. So sort of think of a pie. It's like a pie, it's a big party, and a lot of people want to divide that pie and see who gets the biggest piece. So they divided among themselves. Did they care about traditional territories and cultures of Africa? No. They only cared about making money. They only cared about controlling their colonies. So, as a result, there were a lot of wars that were fought among various tribal groups, and culture groups were permanently fragmented, and African economies became dependent on the sale of cash crops and raw materials. And I would argue that as a result of that conference in 1884, a lot of countries were, a lot of territories were created where there should not have been those territories. And I would argue that Africa still deals with many problems which were created in 1884 in Berlin Conference. Alright, so let's take a look at question 27. So which cultures fought with Zulus in the 19th century over the control of land in South Africa? British and Boers. 3. Easy, easy, easy. That's not hard. Question number 28. A passage. You're going to have a lot of those in the Regents. So let's take a look at it. A celestial empire, China, rules over 10,000 kingdoms. Most surely do we possess a measure of godlike majesty, which you cannot fathom. Still, we cannot bear to slay or exterminate without previous warning, and it is for this reason that we now clearly make known to you the fixed laws on our land. If the foreign merchants of your said honorable nation desire to continue their commercial intercourse, they then must thundingly obey our recorded statutes. They must cut off for the source from which the opium flows, and on no account make an experiment of our laws, in their own persons. Let then your highness, Queen Victoria, punish those of your subjects who might be criminal. Do not endeavor to screen or conceal items, and thus you will secure peace and quietness to your possession. Thus you more than ever display the proper sense of respect and obedience, and thus may we unitedly enjoy the common blessing of peace and happiness. What greater joy, what more complete felicity, which is harmony, than this? A nice passage, and it's written by Chinese Commissioner Lin. It says a letter to Queen Victoria. So let's read the question: which event is most directly related to the 19th century situation described in this passage? And we're given 4 choices. The answer is 1, the signing of the Treaty of Nanjing. But let's take a look at the choices that we're given. We're given the signing of the Treaty of Nanjing, 2, Russo-Japanese War, 3, annexation of Korea, or 4, Sepoy Rebellion. Let's take a look at those events, because most likelihood that will show up in the region. So, Sepoy Rebellion, 1857. So, Sepoys were Indian soldiers in British colonial India. They became unhappy when they heard, because there was a little bit of a rumor. There was a rumor that British were using cow and pig fat to grease their guns. So Hindu Indians considered cows to be sacred, while Muslim Indians, they can't consume pork. They revolted. They rebelled against the British, but they lost. And as a result, Britain got full colonial control of India. Alright, so Treaty of Nanjing, which is the right answer for this question, 1842. It is a treaty that ended the First Opium War, 1939 to 42. Opium, as you know, is a drug which British wanted to sell in China. So number 1, China had to pay the British for the cost of the war. And 2, more ports became open to British trade. 3, Hong Kong became a British territory. 4, British citizens in China could only be tried by Britain, no matter what kind of crimes they committed. Alright, so you know why it's the Treaty of Nanjing, because they're talking about opium. And let's see, Russo-Japanese War, 1804-05. It's a war between Russia and Japan over their spheres of influence in Manchuria and Korea, a war which Russia lost. And there was a Treaty of Portsmouth in 1905, which ended the Russo-Japanese War. And Korea and Japan basically got Korea as a result of that treaty. Right. Question number 29. So, during the late 19th century, Japan's lack of natural resources, and as you know, Japan doesn't have a lot of natural resources. It is an island. So, Japan's lack of natural resources was one of the reasons for implementing a policy of what? So is it collectivization? No, that would be, when you think of collectivization, think about the Soviet Union, communism. So it's not 1. Is it 2? Free trade. That's when you think of free trade. Capitalism. Western United States, Western Europe, and the United States. Socialism, no. And imperialism, yes. Imperialism, absolutely. That's when a stronger country tries to take over and control a weaker one. So, it is imperialism. They were trying to build an empire to acquire those resources. So, what is the right answer? Question number 30. One reason the Bolsheviks gained peasant support during the Russian Revolution was because Bolsheviks promised to, is it 1, redistribute land? Is it 2, abolish communes? Is it 3, bring modern technology to Russian farms? Or is it 4, maintain an agricultural price support program? Well, you know 1 is the right answer. because Bolsheviks promised to give land to the peasants, and without the support of the peasants, Bolsheviks, who are really, if you didn't see my Cold War video, when you think of Bolsheviks, you have to think about communists. So, they needed support of the peasants to win in the Russian Revolution. So, it's to redistribute land. Number 2 makes no sense. Abolish communes? No. 3. Bring modern technology to Russian farms? No. And maintain an agricultural price support program? Absolutely not. Alright, question number 31. Sometimes this question does show up, and this question, I hate this type of question because it does not belong on the global regions. This is a U.S. history type of question, so you're not gonna see a lot of those questions on the regions. So don't stress questions like 31 a lot. You might see it, but it is not. It's a U.S. history question. So Woodrow Wilson, because Woodrow Wilson was a U.S. president, so his 14 points influenced many colonial peoples in Asia and Africa to do what? Is it to create military alliances? And that's the wrong answer. No. Seek self-determination, which is number 2. Number 3, reject terrorism. 4, extend extraterritoriality. Let's see. Well, his 10th point basically stated that people deserve independence, self-determination. Now here, he did not intend for it to be used in Asia and Africa. Mostly, it was mostly addressed towards Europe, but it was used in Asia and Africa for those reasons. So 2 is the right answer. I'm not going to go into too many details about that, because you're not going to see that many questions on it when you take global regions. Because Woodrow Wilson, that's U.S. history. Let's move. Question number 32. Which statement about Turkish leader Ataturk is an opinion rather than a fact? That's the easiest question you could get on the regions, because you don't need to know anything about history to answer this question. If you know how to read, you are going to answer this question. It's as easy as that, guys. If you know what's an opinion and what's a fact. Now, I hope we don't have to go over the difference between fact and opinion. You know, fact is something that's true, an opinion is something that you think is true, but it has no evidence. So that's an opinion. The other thing is a fact. Hope you guys know it. So, number 1, he promoted modernization. Yes, he did it. That's a fact. 2, his efforts led to the development of industries. That's exactly what he did, but that's a fact. He encouraged people to wear Western style clothing. Yes, he did that, and that's a fact. 4 is the right answer, because his major accomplishment was the separation of church and state. So I'm going to tell you guys that major is the key word here. Key word is major. If you see major, because it says his major accomplishment, his best accomplishment, that's the key word. That's a key word that tells you it's an opinion. It's not a fact. He definitely did. It's definitely one of his accomplishments. So, Stalin. So, Stalin's policies in Ukraine. So when I think about his policies, I'm thinking Holodomor, 1930s. Oh, during the 1930s, exactly. Directly resulted in, number 1 is the right answer. It's widespread starvation of Ukrainians. So, number 2. Agricultural self-sufficiency? No. 3. Development of cottage industries? No. 4. Use of subsistence farming techniques? No. The quote, 34. You should take steps not to cease military resistance. Otherwise we shall resolutely employ this bomb and all our superior weapons to promptly and forcefully end the war. 1945, you know, it's the end of the Second World War. And World War II lasted from 39 when September of 1939 when Germany invaded Poland, because Germany was seeking to expand. And 1945, that's when it ended. And as you know, as you may know, guys, Japan was an ally of Germany. There was an alliance of Germany, Nazi Germany, Japan, and Italy under Benito Mussolini. But that's not what this question is asking us. So, 1945. This is again, it's another question that mostly has to do a lot with U.S. history, and the answer is for Japanese civilians of the United States attack. It has nothing to do with Czechs, and number one, which says Czechs of the German invasion. No, to Americans of Hawaii with Japanese attack. No, absolutely not. Americans had no warning when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, and Koreans of Russian invasion. So easy questions, easy answers. Question number 35. The Marshall Plan was designed to stop the spread of communism by providing... Now when you think about the Cold War, you gotta watch my Cold War video about it, but when you think about the spread of communism during the Cold War, you have to think about the policy known as containment. Containment. They wanted to contain the spread of communism, because the idea was if one country became communist, and then it would spread like a disease, everybody else would become communist. And the West, particularly the United States, they don't like that. They don't want that. So, is it one, the government housing for refugees? No. Is it two, military assistance to Vietnam? No. Is it three, funds for economic recovery in war-torn European nations? Absolutely yes. The idea was we're going to give them money so they would not become communist. They wouldn't become communist. So number four, which is nuclear weapons to North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO members? No. So now you have question 36. You have graphic organizer. So you gotta, of course, you gotta know about social studies. So basically answer the question 36 on the graphic organizer below, and your knowledge of social studies. Saddam Hussein. Remember this guy? So, Saddam Hussein used to rule Iraq. And he was a dictator of Iraq. He used to rule Iraq until he got kicked out by the United States, of course. The United States invaded Iraq in 2003. And second point right here says that tensions rise between Sunnis and Shiites, which are different groups in Islam. And let's see, Kurds, which was a different ethnic group in Iraq. Kurds are not just located in Iraq. I mean, there are Kurds in Syria, there are Kurds in Turkey, there are Kurds in many places, but the answer is one, Egypt? No. Is it to Iraq? Yes, I already gave it away. It's Iraq. Is it to Sudan? No. Is it for Bangladesh? No. Question number 37. So, China implemented a one-child policy. African nations established educational and healthcare agendas. Latin American nations worked with the United States to reduce drug trafficking. So which conclusion can be drawn using all of these statements? Is it one, governments of different countries reacted in various ways to the same problem? Is it two, population explosion took place in some countries during the 20th century? Is it three, some countries looked towards other nations to help solve their problems? Or is it four, countries had to address a variety of economic and social problems? Really easy question. It's not one because they're looking at different problems, so you can cross one out. It's not two because population. When you talk about increasing population, you're only dealing with the first bullet point, but you have to think about all three. So it's not two. Is it three? Some countries look towards other nations. No, it's not three, but it is four. countries had to address a variety of issues. So they're listing a whole bunch of problems. Really easy question, easy answer, right? Base your answer to question 38 on the cartoon below and your knowledge of social studies. Now I love these types of questions, and they're called political cartoons, and they always show up on our Regents. So let's take a look at this cartoon. I see. Well, these guys don't look happy. And they're Chinese dissidents. And it says, we googled free speech, democracy, and human rights. So, and it's listing Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, Cisco systems. It says that they collaborate with China to spy on its citizens. So, which statement reflects, question number 38, which statement best describes this cartoonist's point of view? Is it 1, the development of computer technology is prohibited in China? No, 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 no. You know why it's wrong? Because most of the things that, most of anything that has to do with technology is made in China. So, answer number 2. Is it 2, Chinese prisoners are denied access to computers? It's not what this cartoon is saying, so it's wrong. 3, foreign software developers have flooded the Chinese market. No. Is it 4, some American firms have assisted the Chinese government in monitoring citizen computer usage? Yes. It's listing American companies, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, among others. They collaborate, they work together with China to spy on its own citizens. Why do you think they do that? So they could make money. Alright. Question number 39. So what is the long-term effect of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979? So is it 1, communism was strengthened in South Asia? Is it 2, hostilities between China and India lessened? Is it 3, the influence of militant Islamic groups increased in the region? Or is it 4, tensions along the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan were reduced? Yeah, well, number 1 doesn't make any sense because quite opposite has happened. It was one of the causes for the collapse of the Soviet Union. So, if you want more details about it, watch my Cold War video. So, number 2, hostilities between China and India lessened. This has nothing to do with the question, so it's wrong. Number 3, the influence of militant Islamic groups increased in the region? Absolutely yes. It's absolutely true. Because groups like the Taliban had their roots in that war. And number 4, which is of course the wrong answer, it says tensions along the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan were reduced. Tensions were... So, no, it's wrong. So, question number 40. A Jewish state is created. Okay, so that's 1948, I believe. So, Six-Day War results in major Arab losses, 1967. And, the withdrawal begins in West Bank. So, which statement is referred... which situation referred to in these headlines? Is it the Persian Gulf War? 1991. No. Persian Gulf War, it was... the Persian Gulf War was... it was a war between Saddam Hussein and Kuwait, when originally what Saddam Hussein wanted to do is he wanted to invade Kuwait to get control of its oil, and basically the United States kicked him out. Scramble for Africa? No. So one and so wrong. Conflict between Israelis and Palestinians? Absolutely true. And how do you know it too? Well, anytime you see Israel, has to do with the Jewish state. And of course, when you see Palestinians, it also has to do with Israel, major Arab losses, 6-Day War, and collapse of the Ottoman Empire. No. So, United States. Question 41. In Japan, the Meiji Restoration and post-World War II economic miracle can be described as periods of: is it political decentralization? No. Is it revolutionary democratization? No. Is it reactionary social change? No. It's for innovative industrial development. Yeah, because some of the best technology in the world is made in Japan. And Japan is an island. It doesn't have a lot of natural resources. So the only way for Japan to achieve economic stability and well-being is through innovation. They have to be smart. They have to innovate. And they did exactly that. And they're still doing exactly that. Question number 42. The establishment of parliamentary democracy in India and the establishment of Portuguese as the official language of Brazil indicates that European colonizers, is it 1, influenced the culture of regions under their control? Is it 2, respected the government of the indigenous people? Is it 3, promoted Protestant religions over native religions? Or is it 4, studied local traditions before implementing those policies? Implementing policies, yeah. Number 1 is the right answer. They had a lasting influence on the region, even though they no longer controlled that region. They definitely had the influence on that region. And even when you think about the United States, we speak English. It has to do a lot with the fact that the United States used to be the British colony. So let's take a look at question 43. We're given a chart. It says global breakdown of people living with HIV in 2006. So I'm looking at the chart and I see that 62.4% of those people are living in sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, so that's a huge majority of people. And let's take a look at the question. Which hypothesis about the economies of sub-Saharan Africa, so that's below the desert of Sahara, can be derived from the data? It means the information from this graph. Is it 1, economic growth might be slowed by the epidemic? Is it 2, wages for workers will probably decline? Is it 3, desertification will promote economic growth? Or is it 4, the United Nations will probably reduce support for economic development? It's 1, because the rest of them don't make sense. 62.4%. It's a huge number. And it was one. It's still one of the causes as to why sub-Saharan Africa is not that well developed. So number 1 is the right answer. Question 44. So we got 3 bullet points. Let's examine them. So Spain mines silver in Americas. The Dutch established a colony in Southeast Asia, and the English East India Company controls tea plantations in India. So which policy is most closely associated with these events? Is it 1, pacifism? No, because pacifism, that's when you want to avoid war, you want to be peaceful. So that's the wrong answer. Is it 3, non-alignment? When you think about non-alignment, you got to think about India during the Cold War. So what happened during the Cold War? India, India, what they did is they followed something known as non-alignment policy. They didn't want to be allied with the United States or the Soviet Union. So no, that's not the case here. So containment, which was the policy, choice number 4 says containment, which was the policy of the United States during the Cold War to stop the spread of communism. This did not happen here, so let's cross this one out. It's mercantilism. That's when Europeans basically the one established colonies to get rich, to control other people with the goal of getting rich, to establish colonies, to establish trade relations favorable to their own countries. So yeah. And question number 45. As a result of discrimination during the 19th century, Where were many Jews in Eastern Europe forced to live? Is it one on collective farms? Absolutely not. That's what happened in the Soviet Union under Stalin. And if you want to learn more details about it, watch my Cold War video. Is it 2 in fortified villages? Absolutely not. Is it 3 in urban ghettos? Yes, in urban ghettos. So there were specific areas in the city where Jews were forced to live. Because urban means the city, and for industrial areas, no. Question number 46. The Ming Emperor banned the Ming Emperor banned the building of large ocean-going ships in 1433. And Tokugawa Shogun issued an act of seclusion in 1636. So, one way in which these historical occurrences are similar is that both led to increased, is it 1, cultural mobility? Absolutely not. 2, globalization? No. 3, cultural diffusion? The questions have nothing to do with cultural diffusion. So it's for isolationism. If you see the first bullet point, he banned the building of large ocean-going ships. He didn't want people to go on those journeys to explore. And, it's 4 is the right answer. Alright, let's move on. Alright everyone, we're almost done. So, question 47. Armenians under Ottoman rule and Cambodians under Khmer Rouge both experienced, is it 1, outbreak of the plague? Is it 2, human rights violation? Is it 3, economic sanctions? Or is it 4, an agricultural revolution? The only one that makes sense is number 2. Answer number 2 says human rights violations. Absolutely true. The year 1915 is a tragic year for many Armenians. That's because that's the year where many Armenians were killed, and they considered it a genocide. And to this day, the country of Turkey doesn't recognize it, and Armenia does. So, it is what it is. So, 48. One way in which Council of Trent and the Versailles Conference are similar is that they both attempted to do what? 1, restore stability after a period of conflict or disorder, which is absolutely true. So if you remember what Council of Trent was, basically there was a Reformation in Europe where where someone like Martin Luther attempted to reform the Catholic Church, and Council of Trent was a response to that, to those developments. So it was Counter-Reformation. So they did eventually accept some of Martin Luther's reform. So, but this council arrived a little bit too late for them to preserve the Catholic Church and stop the religious breakup of Europe between Catholics and Protestants. So, but the Versailles Conference ended World War I, and what it actually did is it blamed most of the blame for the war on Germany, and Germany had to pay huge reparations, which caused a tremendous amount of economic depression in Germany. And I would argue it was actually one of the reasons for World War II, because one of the reasons why Hitler was able to get so much support for his movement was because Germany got humiliated during that conference. They got humiliated. Treaty of Versailles was not nice to Germans, and they were really mad. They were upset, and that's how many people got radical. So, number 1 is the right answer, 48. So, 49, question 49. The primary reason the Mongols and the British were able to expand their empires through the conquest was because, is it 1, knowledge and command of advanced technologies? Is it 2, a rejection of democratic policies and practices? Is it 3, development of religious and cultural reforms? Or is it 4, an extended period of peaceful trade and commerce? Of course, the answer is 1, a knowledge of command and advanced technology. So anytime a stronger country takes over a weaker one, it's most likely because they have better weapons. Alright, so last question, question 50. So, which event can be considered a conflict brought about in part by a religious reform movement? Is it World War One? No. Is it the Cuban Revolution? No. But since we're talking about it, let's talk about World War One a little bit. So, some of the causes of World War One were, first of all, there was a huge deal of nationalism in Europe and a great deal of tensions. There was a system of alliances. What system of alliances meant was that if one country got attacked, another country which was allied to it had to come to its defense. And is it to the Cuban Revolution? Cuban Revolution, you have to watch my Cold War video for more details about it, but it was the Communist Revolution. World War II, 1939 to 45. No, is it Iranian Revolution? Absolutely, yes! It's Iranian Revolution, guys. Why? Because in 1979, what happened in Iran? They had a Shah, and they overthrew the Shah, who was like their king, in 1979, and established an Iranian government run by, or basically heavily influenced by religion of Islam. Number 4 is the right answer. Alright, so we're done with this. Okay. We're done with multiple choice part. So comments, questions, suggestions, let me know in the comments below. So, this is my first attempt at making a video about multiple choice part of the Regents exam. So I'm aware it's not a perfect video. If you've noticed, I've used several different strategies in this video. In some places, you might have noticed very detailed written explanations, while in others, there were small comments. There were also parts where you only heard my wonderful voice. Feel free to let me know which strategy is the best. You know, the benefits of multiple choice reviews. So some of the benefits of making these types of reviews is that they really do take a lot less time. So I can make a lot of them in a shorter period of time, and you can see a lot more of my videos. And it takes a lot, and I can make a lot of them in a short period of time than it would take me to create my original detailed reviews. It doesn't mean my original detailed reviews are done. I will make them in the future, but I just want to try something new. Another benefit is you get to see how to do real Regents questions. There are some drawbacks, and I'm aware of them. These reviews are not as detailed, but many of you guys do plan to go to college, right? So when you go to college in a few years, you're gonna notice something. One of the things that you're gonna notice is there's a difference between your high school teachers and college professors, and in the fact that most professors will not write down a whole bunch of notes. So most of them are not gonna do it. It's mostly lectures. And you better have good listening skills, because let me tell you, there are many professors who are not good public speakers, and their voices are not going to be really clear. So you better have good listening comprehension skills if you want to succeed in college. And you better learn how to take good notes. So I hope you took notes when you watch my videos. It's a really good strategy. So towards the end of my video, I acted a little bit like a college professor. Well, I do have a master's degree. So in some ways, I'm sort of like qualified to act like one. So I did that. Good luck, guys.